Ostensibly, Iran's nuclear program was the reason that the U.S. and Israel launched their war against Iran in the first place. So what's up with that nuclear program? It seems like it has fallen by the wayside as Iran has captured the Strait of Hormuz, or rather blocked the Strait of Hormuz, and all focus seems to be on getting oil out of the Persian Gulf. I'm Borzu Dergahi. This is the Badlands podcast. You can read my stuff and watch or listen to it at borzu.substack.com. The U.S. said last summer that it had completely obliterated the Iranian nuclear program with bunker buster bombs. But Israeli and U.S. forces continue to hammer at elements of the nuclear program. There's still talk about sending in paratroopers or special forces or some combination thereof to seize the canisters of enriched uranium that were basically crushed beneath a mountain somewhere. There was also a report from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. That's a very prestigious arms control group. The report said that Iran, according to some satellite evidence, may have already moved much of that uranium away from the mountains under which they were buried and had taken them somewhere else. As I mentioned on Twitter a little while ago, perhaps Iran is already launching its own Manhattan Project somewhere in a mountain somewhere, in a tunnel somewhere, on a fast track right now to get its own nuclear weapons. There was also a report by the New Yorker, and it was by a really good journalist, David Kirkpatrick. He talked to someone who was involved in recruiting assets for the nuclear program and recruiting Iranian scientists to defect, and if they wouldn't defect, assassinating them. Kind of a cool little caper. The article was very long. It was very well written, as David is able to do, and very well edited, as the New Yorker always does. But it was very frustrating and unsatisfying because we didn't really learn much about that nuclear program. What kind of secrets did the spying and all the intelligence work, did they really turn up? And one key question about the nuclear program that remains unanswered at this point. We know that Iran has advanced very much in terms of its enrichment. It's able to enrich uranium and it's able to produce the fissile or explosive material to make a nuclear bomb. But there are several other key steps that are required to make an actual nuclear weapon. That includes a very sensitive process known as implosion, which Iran stopped working on, as far as the National Directorate of Intelligence says, in 2003. And then there's the other process that is very important, and that's putting the nuclear material, putting that explosive device onto a warhead, miniaturizing the warhead, and getting it up into space on a missile somewhere. And you can't really do that. You can't really launch a nuclear missile until you have tested perhaps one explosion to see if your design works. This is what scientists have told me over the years. And the other thing that is very interesting about nuclear programs is you don't want just one bomb. Ideally, you want at least like 4 or 5 bombs before you unveil that you have a nuclear weapons program to the world. And that is a key point. So I don't think that Iran wants just one bomb, one dirty bomb. They want to suddenly announce, if they do pursue a nuclear program, that they have 5 or 6 bombs ready. They test one underground. They show off that they have it, and they say that they're going to pursue they're going to start building a nuclear arsenal. There's a lot of commentary on the internet, especially from people in the global south, people who are not from the United States or Canada or Israel or the UK, saying that basically Iran should have a nuclear program. Even the right-wing podcaster, Nicholas Fuentes, said that it was a mistake by Iran's former late supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, to just work on a deterrence program. Why didn't he go for a nuclear program? That would have set up a kind of balance with Israel in the Middle East. And so no country would mess with Iran anymore. And then, there would be this kind of nuclear parity between Iran and Israel. And that would put Israel's ambitions in check. And it would also put Iran's ambitions in check because it would be under much more scrutiny. So what we're wondering now is is what is up with Iran? Are they pursuing a nuclear weapons program? Did they get that enriched uranium out of the mountains in Fordow, in the Fordow Mountains, and in Isfahan? That enriched uranium in Natanz. Did they somehow get that out at some point since June when the bunker busters hit? And are they working on a crash program to develop a nuclear weapon? I spoke a little bit about Iran's nuclear program and whether it is being pursued on the South Era networks. That's SEN. That is a television station, a new television station that is popping up in India, but they seem to have a network around the world. Please listen in.
Now, let's take a look at the latest updates with Borso Daragahi, policy analyst and author of the newsletter Badlands at borso.substack.com. He's joining me now from Istanbul. Borso, let's first talk about the deadline because everyone is talking about it. The US has given Iran a deadline to respond to its peace plan. How likely is it that Tehran will agree, or are we heading towards further escalation?
I don't think that the peace plan is really a peace plan. It was a list of demands that were even more harsh than the original proposal issued by the US before the war started. It's basically fake. I think that people shouldn't listen to anything that Donald Trump says or the US administration says. People should just watch where the troops are moving, where the amphibious assault vehicles are moving, where the special operations forces are moving, and they're moving towards the Persian Gulf. And in that sense, I think that some kind of big action is coming. And Trump's messaging is meant to basically give the Americans a little bit of an edge, to get the Iranians to relax a little bit, to get the Iraqi Shia militias to stand down a little bit, and to get Yemen's Houthis to perhaps not be on guard, thinking that there's still room for negotiations.
Borso, one of the key demands is that Iran must never develop a nuclear weapon. But Ayatollah Khamenei, assassinated by the US, had in fact issued a fatwa to that effect, not to weaponize the nuclear proliferation. Now, with Ayatollah Khamenei gone, where are we? How central is this issue to the conflict right now? Of course, it is for the US, but how do you see it being taken from here on?
Well, I think to some extent for the Americans and the Israelis, the nuclear issue was always kind of a red herring. It was just a tool to oppose the Iranian regime to some extent. There are some genuine concerns there. But I think that more than anything right now, the danger is that the nuclear material has been removed. According to the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, which is one of the oldest arms control organizations in the world, based on satellite photos, they say they have strong evidence that this material is not where the Americans and the international inspectors think it is. It could be dispersed. And the real danger is that there will be a collapse of the regime, as the Israelis seem to be fine with, and that this material, that then you'll have basically 5 or 6 militias with the means to potentially create nuclear weapons, and that'll be basically a complete disaster for the region.
Borso, this is very interesting. I want to discuss this in detail. In fact, I would request you to now give us the most unfiltered take. With the leadership changing and past opposition to nuclear weapons now uncertain, Borso, is there a real risk that Iran could now move closer to developing one?
Well, I think I just tweeted today about this issue, and I wrote that, look, Iran could have already launched their own emergency Manhattan project. That was the project by which the U.S. developed the nuclear weapon during World War II, and it could be in a mountain somewhere. Iran is a huge country, as Indians know, and this could be somewhere deep inside a mountain, and they're already working on it as far as we know, and they could already have some kind of crude device, because the logic is that okay, fine. You know, look at North Korea and then compare that to Syria or Libya or Iraq. And, you know, North Korea is surviving, and those countries that didn't have nuclear weapons, either they were destroyed or they give them away, are being attacked. And Ukraine is the same thing. They gave away their nuclear program in 1991, 1992, and Russia was able to attack them. So the logic of the recklessness of the world powers dictates that countries like India and Pakistan should develop nukes if they have eternal enemies. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Borzu Deragahi. This is Badlands at borzu.substack.com.